Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here. Today I'm going to review Your Physique August 1949 with Alan Stephan on the cover. Alan Stephan, America's Great Bodybuilder, it says here on the cover. This particular magazine issue has some very interesting articles which I'll now go through. Let's set that up correctly. So as always, there's several ads in the beginning, including steel cables. And if we go straight to the first articles, there are more very sexy poses here from Val Niord, the bodybuilder's sweetheart. Again, I've mentioned this in my previous video of Widen's, I guess, presentation of female, athletes, one could say, or trainers at the time, such as the Swedish beauty Val Niord here. Even though the message is very good, the message is about how women now, or at least at the time, were now more intelligent and not necessarily the weaker sex. That is not necessarily portrayed in all these photos, with obviously beauty being the focus there. I thought one of the most impressive articles of this particular issue was on Alan Calvert in A History of American Weightlifting. Now, if you have no idea who Alan Calvert is, then shame on you. He's actually the man who started probably one of the very first barbell companies in the world. He's actually credited for starting the Milo Barbell Company. There he is there. And I mean, he also started one of the very first magazines. I think it was the very first magazine in the US called Strength. And I mean, these magazines now cost an absolute fortune, and they had some very, very useful information. I would say they're equivalent to the Iron Man by Peary Rader and other really good magazines, such as nowadays, or I should say the more recent Hard Gainer magazines. These are all very sound and true, honest recommendations for bodybuilding and strength training. One of the best magazines ever written was Strength by Alan Calvert. In 1911, he also published The Truth About Weightlifting, and since then he published many books, became very famous, and had a legion of very famous athletes under him. I really would like to do a separate video on Alan, as I did on George F. Jowett, because I think he should definitely be remembered and brought back to the eyes of the modern public as one of the founders, really, of the iron game, which we love so much. Moving on, a great article on the Mr. North America Ifbb 1949 contest, won by the king of bodybuilders, Clarence Ross, in a most muscular pose, looking absolutely incredible. It was a real fight against some of the top bodybuilders of the time. If you can see, and I'll actually zoom in into some of the photos, but I can read the whole line of placings, with Clarence Ross being first. Second was Alan Stephan. Third was Floyd Page. Fourth came Armand Tanny. Fifth, Leo Robert. Sixth, Abe Goldberg. And then you had the French Leroux on 7th, and 8th, Pavio. Or standing here along with the Junior Mr. Americas. Just Junior Mr. America, Junior Mr. North America was won by Marvin Eder. Second was Johnny E. Chino, and third was Felix Gudritis, a prodigy that I mentioned in a previous video as well. On top of that, the barbell competition was a draw between Alan Stephan and Clarence Ross, with both benching 350. You had who else? I think who won I think it was Alan Stephan with a curl of almost 200 pounds that won the barbell curl competition. Best chest was won by Goldberg. If we look, I think, on the next page now, that's right, there is Alan Stephan receiving his award for winning the barbell competition. So as I mentioned, best chest was Abe Goldberg. Legs was won by Armand Tanny. I think that was very political, because when you compare it to Floyd Page's legs, Floyd had way better developed legs. But you know what? I reckon Widen, just like he does nowadays, or just like they do nowadays, hand out trophies to everybody, so everyone's happy. Arms was won by Floyd Page. Best abs was won by Leo Robert. Again, I have no idea how he won best abdominals, when again Floyd Page or even Armentani had superior abdominals. Very bizarre results there. And best back was won by LaRue. I believe that's him up here. Maybe not. I can't remember. But a very beautifully presented pictorial on the North America Ifbb competition here. Problems of the Short Man was another great article written by George F. Jowett, and it does address several points that I'll probably do a separate video on. Basically, George F. Jowett here goes that the short man usually is either small boned or has a very boxy frame, and therefore has a lot of difficulty in developing a V taper. And therefore he talks about how to basically make the waist appear smaller by widening the shoulders. And this is a question that I've received by several people, in particular by, I think his name is Magnus Rasmussen from Denmark, I believe. I will cover this particular topic just for you, because I know you've really been asking me about it. What recommendations there are from the Silver era in regards to widening the scapula. You can't necessarily widen the clavicles, I don't think, although some people think it's possible. But really, in a adult that has their bones set, this cannot be the case. I'm sorry, but the scapula can definitely be extended outwards so that the shoulders basically appear wider, along with an expanded rib cage. Absolutely, the flexibility of the shoulder increasing. These things are covered also by Steve Reeves. The shoulder girdle can actually be, or the shoulder, I guess, diameter or measurement can be a little bit wider when doing certain exercises, which I'll explain in a separate article, video article. Now, other interesting articles were written here by David Willoughby on chest development, where basically he gives or discusses the maximum chest size in relation to a person's height and weight, as well as the optimal chest to waist ratio, which is basically the chest to waist should be 1.33 as a ratio. And he gives examples of some of the greatest chests, as you can see in these diagrams, and he actually lists them as well. A very interesting article as well. I'm actually thinking of maybe even writing a booklet on David Willoughby and his ability to, I guess, portray realistic measurements for the natural bodybuilder. I think this is a great topic. I think it's too extensive to cover in a particular video, and this is why I'm thinking of collecting all his work and putting out a booklet on it and selling it either through my Patreon account or through Amazon or something. I think it's great information for natural bodybuilders to have this and be able to chart their progress and really realize, I guess, what is achievable naturally. What else? This is another great article written by Alan Stephan. This is the second actually for the beginners series, exercises for the beginners. I already covered the back exercises that Alan Stephan recommends for beginners. Here I will do a separate video on this, on Alan Stephan's recommendations for developing arms for beginners. Basically, you can see from the images that he recommends the basic barbell curl, wrist rolling for the forearms, reverse curls for the brachialis, and lying tricep extensions for the triceps. Although I really think that his little tweaks and tips deserve a full video, and I will cover this in a separate video. What's your problem? I read it. I didn't see anything too exciting in it. Rex Revell, a famous Hollywood actor at the time, is featured as well. And it's a pretty interesting read in that this man has a gym in Hawaii, or had a gym in Hawaii, and he actually created, whilst he was in the Navy, 5 years, or 5 years before this article was written, he was in the Navy, and he actually made 3,000 pounds of weights from the metal taken from scuttled Japanese submarines. How hilarious is that? So he recycled the submarines into weights and then created his own gym in Hawaii. Unbelievable. Now his measurements, I think, are also a little bit unbelievable, in that he was 205 pounds. That's not necessarily unbelievable at 6 foot, but he had a 50-inch chest. I don't know about that. It looks more like a 45 to 46-inch chest to me. A 33-inch waist, that's believable. Hips of 40.5 inches, maybe. Thighs 26 inches, yeah, possible. 17-inch calves. Neck and shoulder and biceps also 17 inches. Well, perhaps, I don't know. Who knows? But I am now starting to believe that some of these measurements are a little bit exaggerated. When they say 46 to 48 inches, I can believe that. But 50 inches and over, natural, very difficult to believe, I'm sorry to say. He basically trained 3 times a week, as was the norm back then. Full body training involving push-ups and dips between benches or stools, feet raised. He also enjoyed doing chin-ups, wide grip for example, sit-ups and hanging leg raises, 2-arm barbell rows, squatting, all the basics basically. That's how these men were built back then, even these movie stars from Hollywood. The rest of the article shows more ads, of course. Here's the famous iron shoe, and I actually want to purchase one. I'm actually in the can't get the words out, in the process of ordering and finding a lot of these old fitness, or I could say old pieces of equipment, like the iron shoe, all these crusher grip sets. I actually own a giant Apollon multiplex exerciser, which is just a chest crusher. I have one from Wide. I have actually 2. I have one of these cable sets, also called a chest expander cable set from the Wader, and grippers, of course, and iron. What are they called? The iron shoes. Sorry. And I actually am thinking of doing videos on how to use these pieces of retro equipment. I feel that I may actually have gained some benefit from these particular vintage equipment, simply because they are very different to machines. They are very different to dumbbells and barbells. Here's another one, the Wader leverage bell. Actually, I believe that George F. Jowett actually made a patent on this a long time ago. I'm actually in the process of also ordering his course on the fulcrum leverage, and I actually bought some fulcrums from the Jowett Institute. Really interesting stuff when you start collecting these old pieces of fitness equipment. Maybe I should do a separate video on what I own. But anyway, that's it from this magazine. More ads, la-di-da. And that's the review. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. This is the Golden Era Bookworm. Bye for now.